I'd like to introduce, please, Clare Gardiner Barnes. And Clare's the Deputy Secretary for Freight Strategy and Planning Division, overseeing policy, safety, planning and regulation. So Clare will be describing the work of Transport for New South Wales to deliver walking and cycling as part of an integrated transport system. So great, thanks for coming.
Yep, all good. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's lovely to be here. Can I begin by recognising the Gadigal people from the Aurora Nation and any elders past and present who are here this morning. And can I just congratulate Shelley on her performance this morning and her fantastic presentation. While I work for Transport for New South Wales, I'm very new to New South Wales. I have been here only 6 months and haven't lived here before taking on this role. And in fact, in a prior jurisdiction in Queensland about 6 years ago, I worked in education, and one of my areas of responsibility was health policy for students. So I felt very much at home with the work that she was doing, and it was great to hear those key messages still being talked about and being implemented across the world, because childhood obesity is such a big issue that so many of us are dealing with, and it's great to see such an integrated approach to that issue. So one thing I will say in coming to Sydney is that I probably have not done so much walking to work in my whole life since I've been here. So one thing that happened prior to my appointment as a senior executive, and I've been one for many years, prior to me coming down, I rang the secretary after trying to negotiate the car package for my employment. And I had lined up to speak to him a couple of months before I started, and I said, Tim, look, I'm not getting any traction with this, with your area around the car package. And he said, Claire, just get an Opal card. So I actually decided not to take the package and to get a card and take on the challenge. My husband's now joined me and he's bought a car with him, but I did have several months in Sydney on my own without a car, and relied on public transport, taxis and lots of walking, and I bought a new bike within a few weeks of being down here, so did a lot of cycling. So throughout my talk this morning, I will pepper it with a few little anecdotes of my experience coming into Sydney for the first time and experience what it's like to live in the big metropolis, particularly given that the last 6 years I've spent in Darwin, which by head of population, the Northern Territory has the highest active transport group across the nation. And no doubt New South Wales will be up there very soon as king of the pops. So this morning I'm just going to talk about some of the work that we're doing in transport to promote active transport and build on where we've come over the last few years, and talk about some of the policy and planning work that we're about to embark on. So you're all here because no doubt you agree that walking and cycling opportunities create healthier and happier people. It means we are better connected to each other, and in fact it's the most cost-effective way to get around town. So I have enjoyed my opportunity to get to know Sydney on foot. Almost all of the public transport journeys include some form of walking as a way of accessing trains, buses, ferries and light rails, and most car trips, of course, also end with walking. So in Sydney, in the Greater Sydney area, our customers of public transport take more than 2.3 billion walking trips each year. And we want to make our neighbourhoods and suburbs and pedestrian-friendly places and get more people walking, especially for short trips. So more than 2 million of the car trips we make every day are less than 2 kilometres. Our aim is to convert a large portion of these trips from car to foot, with programs to get people walking more and better connected walking routes, with improved street crossings and other walking infrastructure, particularly in our really congested areas. And I have to say that I'm still very much getting used to the Sydney congestion. And I am a strong believer, if we're going to make this a success in Sydney, it's not just about infrastructure, it's very much a change in behaviour and a change in attitude. So according to our annual Sydney cycling survey, cycling is more popular than you'd expect, with 4 in 10 people having ridden a bike in the Greater Sydney area in the past year. Across the state, an estimated 2.7 million ride a bike at least once a year, and that's more than the population of Darwin, Perth and Adelaide. We also aim to double the number of cycling trips in metropolitan Sydney and further grow cycling for all trips in New South Wales, particularly in urban centres, with programs and projects purposed to connect these cycle networks and encourage much better use of the network. So a couple of weeks into cycling across Sydney, I guess one of the key frustrations for me in trying to navigate the bikeways is the lack of connectivity between those bikeways, and there's a number of programs that we've got in place to try and address that. But also as a mother of 4 boys, a stepmother of 2 and a mother of 2, adult boys now, I'm very conscious that if we're going to get kids and young people cycling and walking to their sporting events and reducing some of the drop-off for parents, then safety's got to be a major consideration. About 70% of our customers have told us that they'd like to walk or cycle for more transport and would do so if it was safer and easier for them. So safety has got to be a real priority for how we move forward. On average, 11 pedal cyclist fatalities there are every year. Also on average, 1,500 serious injuries every year. And that number is rising, increasing from 1,400 in 2011 to more than 1,800 last year. All of these 1,800 plus cyclists were all admitted to hospital, and that's because of a serious injury. Pedestrian fatalities also rose to 61 in 2015, and another 15 have already been killed this year. So increasing road safety is often about safer infrastructure, but it's also about safer behaviour. Safer behaviour by our vulnerable road users and safer and more respectful behaviour by drivers and motorcyclists and riders. And I have to say, I have caught many cabs since arriving in Sydney, and I've been in cabs a number of times where there's been really inappropriate behaviour towards cyclists. So it is something that is a cultural issue that needs to be addressed. When people walk or cycle as part of their journey, they reduce traffic and relieve pressure on the public transport system while contributing to the vibrancy and livability of their communities. Walking and cycling infrastructure offers a good return on investment, delivers greater transport benefits and is actually quite modest in the budget compared to some of the major public transport projects we've got on the boil at the moment. With the benefits of walking and cycling in mind, New South Wales Government is committed to much better walking and cycling outcomes for customers and communities across the state. Since 2011, the New South Government has invested historic levels of walking and cycling, including $57 million allocated in the 15-16 state budget for walking and cycling infrastructure. Major projects like the Nepean River Green Bridge are in addition to this. Government's ongoing walking and cycling programs are providing better infrastructure to deliver connected walking and cycling networks, promotions that encourage community to participate in walking and cycling, and partnerships to promote active and integrated transport. This work is underpinned by an understanding of who's walking and cycling and what's important to them, what they want. So we've asked our customers what factors would be the most important to persuade them to walk further and more often. And they've told us there's basically 4 broad categories: more direct routes to destinations, including well-connected footpaths to public transport, safety and personal security measures, including enforcement of road rules, lower speed limits in busy areas and pedestrian-friendly, safe infrastructure, promotion of physical and mental health and social benefits of walking, and finally, better supporting facilities, including shade or rain cover at interchanges and better signage. So just prior to coming in this morning, I was told there's an interesting fact for people in Sydney's CBD that for every year, they wait around at traffic lights for about 3 days. So look, I'm pleased to say that I've actually found a way to walk home from work. So my base is at Central Station, just in Lee Street, and I've found a pleasant walk home that takes me about 40 minutes crossing one road. So that's a pretty amazing thing, but because of the goods line that's been built and the lovely walk along Darling Harbour around to through Barangaroo and to Walsh Bay, I'm home having a lovely waterside walk. So I get there's a lot more people in Sydney who'd like to have that experience walking to and from work. We also spoke to our customers about how to get them to ride more often. So they mentioned similar factors to the walking customers. Cyclists like to place greatest value on high-quality direct cycling routes that are separated from other road users. It's also important to be more responsible for sharing paths, increasing driver awareness of bicycle road rules, and for some cyclist customers, supporting facilities were a key factor, like street lighting and improved cycle parking, etc. We shape our walking and cycling initiatives around what customers value, and that's really the basis of how the Transport for New South Wales is framing all of its new policy and planning and how we deliver services at the moment. So the customer is at the centre of everything we do, and that's the lens that we put through all of our decision making. We focus our investment where it's likely to have the greatest impact by connecting busy centres and interchanges through walking and cycling infrastructure programs. We're promoting the use of existing infrastructure, especially for short trips, with initiatives such as trip planning, wayfinding and travel behaviour change. And we're working collaboratively with partners, including important partners like local councils, to integrate walking and cycling into community strategy plans for their vision for the future. Where it's possible, we provide dedicated infrastructure and separated cycle paths, but these aren't the only answers. Improving cycle safety is about mutual respect on our roads and responsible behaviour. And I think, after having a number of months in Sydney, I think it would do everyone a lot of good when they get behind the wheel of a car or even on their bike to just take a chill pill. In Darwin, we often went over to Bali for holidays, and for those of you who've driven around Bali, it's pretty crazy. But the Balinese somehow have this amazing way to keep calm in that crazy traffic environment, and I think Australians could learn a lot about how to calm themselves. A lot of our accidents, I think, are caused by the increased pressure we put on ourselves and the stress that we carry when we get behind the wheel. So taking a deep breath and calming ourselves down, I think will have some really positive outcomes for safety. We've introduced minimum passing distance rules just recently, so drivers can give cyclists more space on the road and when they pass them, and that's been accompanied by a major campaign to assist road users to share the road safely and respectfully under the Go Together theme. As part of the cycling package, we've also increased penalties significantly for a small number of high-risk category offences, such as not wearing helmets, proceeding through red lights. And this idea is really about keeping cycle riders' safety and providing a deterrent for high-risk behaviours. We've kicked off a major program to increase pedestrian protection at traffic lights. Lower speed limits are being rolled out with many more 40-kilometre speed lanes in the CBD from April this year. We're also ensuring that walking and cycling needs are considered as part of the development of all new transport-funded infrastructure programs in New South Wales. The new bus rapid transit service will improve public transport services in the Northern Beaches to the CBD, and as part of that project will provide customers with integrated pedestrian and bicycle links to commuter car parks and Beeline shops. WestConnex is Australia's largest integrated transport urban revitalisation project. It will substantially change the traffic environment along Parramatta Road and enable Parramatta Urban Transformation Program. The project will include the investment of 14 kilometres of new and improved pedestrian cycle paths linking St Peters, Alexandria and Mascot. Sydney Metro will deliver more trains and faster services for customers across the network. It will increase the number of trains entering the CBD from 120 to about 200 in our busiest hour, and that's an extra 100,000 train customers an hour in the peak, which of course means a lot more pedestrians. We will change the way people move around our city, reducing congestion and enabling housing and employment growth along the vital global economic corridor to the west to Bankstown. Design principles for the Sydney Metro project are focusing on providing high-quality experience for customers and delivering built elements that contribute to good public access spaces, including direct, equitable, safe and convenient connections between transport modes, including active modes, and integration with adjacent land use. Right now in New South Wales, there's about 3,670 kilometres of off-road cycling paths and 4,920 kilometres of on-road bicycle lanes, road shoulders and designated local bicycle routes managed by councils. In 15-16, walking and cycling programs are currently assisting in the design and delivery of more than 130 pedestrian crossings, about 34 kilometres of on-road cycleways and 74 kilometres of off-road cycle paths across New South Wales. There's 377 projects underway across 83 local government areas, 158 walking projects, of which 52 are within the metropolitan Sydney area, 219 cycling projects, of which 69 are within the metropolitan Sydney area. There's a lot happening. The Walking Communities program offers regional and metropolitan walking projects to better connect walking infrastructure and programs to encourage walking. There's a mix of 50-50 partnership funding with local councils and 100% funding for New South Wales government priorities. The Connected Centres cycling program provides 50-50 partnership funding to local councils to connect and develop new local cycle infrastructure and programs to encourage cycling. And this is complemented by government's commitment to fully fund the delivery of strategic cycleways in the metropolitan area and cycleways on state-owned assets in regional New South Wales through our Priority Cycleways program. The New South Wales Government will continue to deliver a record number of new cycleways and walkways, upgrading year on year. Between 10-11 and 14-15, the walking and cycling programs deliver more than $180 million worth of new cycleways and walking upgrades. That's $72 million more than the previous 5 years. Cycling Towns. For the first time, the New South Wales Government is delivering a specific program for cycling infrastructure in regional centres. The Cycling Towns program is actioned under our regional transport plans. The aim of the program is to rapidly increase cycle mode share by focusing on the delivery of cycle infrastructure and encourage bike riding in regional centres. Cycling Towns participants between New South Wales Government and local councils require strong commitments from local government to maintain infrastructure and carry out promotional activities. Successful cycling towns must demonstrate strong cycling catchment in terms of connecting people to major destinations. Forster and Tuncurry is one of the cycle towns. Over the last 6 months, we've already seen significant improvements in the cycling network within Forster-Tuncurry. New wayfinding messaging, maps are all showing visitors and locals how easy it is to get around the town and use the bike network. But more planning and construction is underway. Infrastructure is only part of the picture. walking and encouraging people to cycle is a huge part of the challenge. In 2015, we introduced Good Move, walking and cycling promotional campaign. The campaign encourages our customers to consider walking or cycling part of their everyday travel journey. In December, we also announced contracts to secure bicycle parking at Liverpool, Campbelltown, Gosford and Woy Woy train stations. The first bike sheds will be rolled out this year. We've also sponsored a number of major events, including New South Wales Bike Week. In 2015, there were more than 60 Bike Week events across New South Wales. The event involving transport cluster agencies, local government and community groups pulled together to promote cycling statewide. We also are involved in the Spring Cycle. In 2015, over 9,000 riders took part in that event, enjoying riding across the deck of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And we've also very much involved in walking events, a range of walking events across Sydney's bridges and the National Walk to Work Day. In the CBD, for those of you who've been around for the last few months, you would have seen with 90% of all trips in the CBD on foot, we've invested in the pink people and the pink shirts all around town. And this is to help customers navigate their way around the city as we've introduced the closure of George Street. And we commenced the overhaul of the CBD busway, so people needed a lot of instruction around trying to navigate those new routes. So working together is a key part of how we do our business. We're working very closely with the Department of Health, with the Department of Lands and Planning. We recently discussed with Health and ways we could share data and research around understanding customer satisfaction and changing behaviours. We're keen to continue our work with the Western Suburbs Diabetes Prevention Alliance, and our focus is very much on reducing obesity. And this is particularly one of the Premier's priorities. We work with interstate departments, National Cycling Strategy and the Australian Cycling Council. So what's next? We're about to consult on a new active transport policy, and for those of you who are interested, I would encourage you to engage with Transport for New South Wales as we develop that policy and finalise it and consult with interest groups. It's a really important policy that will really outline the foundation for how we develop, fund and prioritise cycleways and walkways into the future. We're also about to refresh our long-term master plan, and we want to use a very different approach to engage professionals, members of the public, to ensure that we get the new plan very much focused on best practice, evidence-based, and what customers want from their transport system. That plan will include public transport initiatives, new road networks, long-term plans for the future, and new policy directions for Transport for New South Wales. There's lots of opportunities for you as key stakeholders to get engaged in that process, and over the coming months you'll find out opportunities on how to do that by going to the Transport for New South Wales website. I'd like to thank you for having me here this morning, speak to you. I hope you felt my presentation was informative, and I look forward very much to working with you all in the future to ensure much better active transport for New South Wales.
I was just noting that you're working on a new walking and cycling strategy. How does that relate to the existing Sydney cycling future and Sydney's walking future? Is this a New South Wales-wide strategy? Is that the difference, or is it just a refresh of the current walking and cycling strategies?
It will be a New South Wales-wide strategy, but we certainly will be looking to integrate it with existing strategies and refresh those as we move forward. So we don't want to have a confused network of strategies out there. We want to have a simple message, so it's an opportunity to refresh those strategies that are already in place.
Okay, and I think the lady here had a question.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. Davina Knox from the Green Building Council. I work with the Green Star Communities rating tool, which looks to look at the sustainability attributes of large-scale master plan development, and active living and active transport is very much part of what we're encouraging developers to put in. But one of the obstacles that we come across quite regularly, and I find it interesting because you mentioned it to a point in your presentation, is about the uptake by local authorities of facilities and the maintenance and ongoing upkeep of them once they've been put in as an impediment to them putting in the level and scale and type of facilities that they'd like to put in, because they're getting pushback basically from local authorities that they're not prepared to take them on when they hand them over. And I know you've mentioned that, and you specifically said there needs to be a lot of buy-in from local councils. So how are they going to be able to cope with that?
Yeah, I guess one of the key things in financing transport infrastructure is whole-of-life costs. It's not something that's been done well in the past, but it's certainly something that government has seen as a priority for the future, and looking at some innovative financing models, because there's lots of groups that benefit from infrastructure investment that's focused on better transport solutions, and that's one of the priorities for Transport for New South Wales right now, is looking at innovative financing models in partnership with industry, in partnership with local councils, and in partnership with commercial and bankers that can provide opportunities at the local level and see the benefits for everybody in the community by a joined-up partnership approach. So I get there's more work to be done in that space, and hopefully over the next few years we'll demonstrate some innovative ways of financing some real key local infrastructure that communities really value.
Thank you. I'm afraid we will have to leave it there, but I mean, I could talk about cycling all day, really. I mean, but we can't unfortunately do that. But please join with me in thanking Clare for what's been a really interesting presentation. Thank you, Clare.